Okay, so thank you everyone for coming today. Thank you very much. I know it's a busy IBC. I'll show you first a quick result on the Olympics and the audience. It's pretty insane. We are talking about 99% of the French people above 15 years old that have been watching the Olympics on French television channel, and you're going to be seeing some of the innovations behind these workflows. Today with us, we have Romuald, Head of Innovation at France Television and Tech Lab, and we have Skander, the Head of Engineering. We also have Guillaume, that is the Head of the Media Factory, so they will be presenting you all the workflows that have been used on the France TV side. We are also joined by Valérie from Obvious, and she will explain you what has been done on the private 5G network that made the torch relay possible. So I'm really excited because the results have been tremendous, and I'm going to leave Romuald come on stage with the last word is that this would have not been possible without the partnership between AWS on the cloud side, the 5G from Obvious and TDF. TDF is not here today. And of course, France Television, who really worked very openly with all of us in a real partnership way. And for those who have been maybe at the SVG event yesterday, the introduction was to say, with the transformation of today, it's pretty much impossible to do anything without a strong partnership between the vendor and the customer. So with that, I'm leaving it to Romuald. Come on stage.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Yoni. You all know that we've got big challenges. Our companies has got big challenges. One of the first is to reduce our CO2 emissions. We've got all this topic in our mind. Also, we are in front of less budget. A lot of companies got this problem, but at the same time, we have to produce more content. It's an obligation for us to be more competitive and to have a better address to our audience. So these three points are essential to solve for our industry. And to talk about that, we'll focus on the Olympic torch relay and the innovation we have initiated. So the Olympic torch relay was the first step of the Olympic adventure for French people. The relay was a very important event with a large crowd in each city where the torch was. We think that it participates to create the special state of mind, very festive, we had in France during the Olympic period. So, in connection with Paris 2024, France Television decided to offer an important live coverage of the Olympic torch relay with a dedicated channel, digital one, and with an important editorial ambition. We wanted to have live all day long, 8 to 10 hours live per day during 69 days. And we wanted to have 8 cameras to manage, so it was a very ambitious editorial offer. So, as you can see, the coverage, the journey, of the relay was very important. We used to say that it was a Tour de France, but in fact it was bigger than a Tour de France. And as I said, the crowd on the journey were very important. So 5G connection and transmission with 5G alone was not the solution. So transmission and production, how we produce where are two big challenges of this topic, and Skander will explain you the solution we made to solve that.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being so many to see what we put in place for the Olympic torch. So when Romuald came and said, "Hey, we need to cover this Tour de France because it looks like a Tour de France," production team say, "Okay, we know how to do that. Every year we do a Tour de France, and let's do a traditional setup using planes, helicopters, and HF connections." But obviously, that did not meet the commitment we had. That was about reducing cost and reducing CO2 footprint. So we began studying with the team and connecting with some partners who will talk just after, and tried to imagine something quite different than the traditional setup. And it was based, as Romuald said, on 5G. So the idea was to create a double attachment of the feeds. Firstly, using a 5G bubble provided by TVU networks and linked to the Starlink, and then connection of the Starlink up to the cloud, and also a connection to the public 4G and 5G network. Having that double connection helps us provide a constant flow of data and thus maintain the quality of the feeds. The number of cameras, we had 3 big cameras following the torch, plus 1 journalist following special events using a device, an iPhone. And in the process of conception of this solution, we had partners with Obvious, TDF, of course TVU networks. The solution is provided by them, and we went to host this solution in AWS infrastructure. So I'll let maybe Obvious explain later exactly how their technology works. But basically, this is how it looks like, and it's up to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so a few words about the car equipped for this event. So the idea indeed was to embed everything in a car, so all in a car. So you have here an overview of what we installed on the roof of the car, which was in fact the 5G radio and the antenna to create this bubble. In the boot, you can see it's a 5G core solution on a server with the router also for the satellite backhaul. And here you see the antenna for the satellite backhaul of the signal to the remote media hub production. And all these equipments were fed by battery, also installed in the boot of the car. So with such a solution, we have something autonomous and mobile, able to provide a robust signal on the move. And if we look at the statistics, in fact, we see that we are able to overcome the problem of coverage or saturation of public networks. You can experiment when you join such a journey and you cross city, but also small village across France. And statistics show that 80% of the time, the feeds was using the 5G, the private 5G bubble, in fact. So some figures to imagine the result of this setup. So in fact, when we look at this, the car, the system was switched on every morning and switch off end of the day after the 10 hours of life. And we experiment zero downtime during this 80 days of journey. In terms of consumption, we have a total consumption of the equipment under 300 watts. That were allowing to use the battery embedded in the car, so an autonomous system. And in terms of security of this connectivity, using a private network means, in fact, for you to have a dedicated frequency. You do not rely on the operator frequency. It is your own frequency, so it's secure the availability of the bandwidth, in fact, in that case. And if we look at the performance of using such a dedicated frequency with 100 megahertz bandwidth, we measure in average 800 megabytes per second in uplink, and the latency within the bubble of less than 60 milliseconds.
One point is that, as Valerie stated, it's very easy to switch on and off this this device that you saw in the car behind. It's just an on and off button, so there's no technical knowledge for the teams to have. It's very easy to install, very easy to use every day. So the workflow, we've seen some images, and for us it was very important because it is today the first production we had 100% end-to-end in the cloud, only using resources on the cloud. We did not deploy anything on premises, and it was used for a major event. As Romuald said, we had millions of viewers on this digital channel, with very high expectations from Paris 2024 organization team. This is a very complicated slide, so let's do it very slowly. So first step was the captation. You see on the left, this is the 5G bubble and what has been done on the deployment, on the torch relay. Then we have transmission. We see Starlink, 5G private network that are fed to the cloud. The production has been done in the cloud, so we had two products from TVU. The first one was TVU Producer and Remote Commentator, and also continuity for the antenna has been provided by the product of TVU called TVU Channel. And having all this end-to-end solution, and we can maybe discuss and go deeper on that later, was the major advantage of the solution, since it has been all integrated and very easy to deploy. And to show that, we had all those functionalities. We had camera synchronization, we had remote commentary, we had audio mixing, advertisement and program playout, scheduling, intercom. All this was in the cloud, also graphics, and we had nothing to deploy on premises. The only thing that was deployed was the producer, sorry. Yes, for the mixing and the camera switching. So this was done in a meeting room. So this is not a control room. So it's really a usual meeting room we transformed for 3 months, to be used as the torch relay production center. And then PCR and MCR also in a meeting room, and no equipment deployed in our data centers, just using the service provided by the cloud. You can scan this QR code to see the workflow and setup, and we can also have a discussion to go deeper in this explanation. From a user point of view, they did not see that it was all deployed in the cloud. From latency point of view, from usage point of view, it is just a usual setup. What was very important in that setup is that we created the panels they are already used to use in everyday life. And so this switcher, the audio mix were deployed, and that was a key element in the adoption process of this setup.
Thank you, Skander. So, as you can see, that the audience of the torch relay were very good. Especially the viewing time, which was very long for us. It was unexpected. And we are convinced that the richness of the editorial offer is the reason of this success, because the offer was very rich. These two innovations allowed us to produce more content with more camera, more proximity, more scalability, and always with quality, which was important. To understand that, at the origin, what was planned for the coverage, it was to have only one camera in each relay, because there was two relay, with only a little small part of live, and each day an editing of daily best of. When France Television and Paris 2024 decided to broadcast all torch relay, the two innovation gave us the opportunity to have 8 cameras all day long, and I will talk later to have more offer. Now a few numbers, very important. If we compare traditional setup for the transmission between HF transmission and with a fly, like Tour de France, like Skander talked about, we avoided 99. Sorry, it is a cost. Sorry. So for the cost comparison, the cost between the two setup, it's 99% of difference. To imagine, we made the total, and the cost of the traditional setup was up to 4.5 million euros. So we saved 99% of the budget. The cost comparison for the production is 63%. It's also important because this number is very important, because this solution, the cloud solution, gives us a lot of opportunity for the future of our production, which could be adapted to many use cases for editorial needs for the news, but of course for sport production. I said that. So if we compared traditional setup with HF transmission with flight, we avoided more than 600 metric tons of CO2 emission, which represent 99% between the two setup. It's very important. We've got all this topic in our company. France Television is engaged in COP21 objective to reduce its carbon emission by 40% in 6 years. So this kind of result is very important for us to imagine how we will produce our life during next years. Now I let Kevin Savina from AWS to talk about this topic of cloud production, cloud and sustainability.
Thank you, Romuald. Yes. So I'm Kevin Savina. I work for AWS, just across the street. And what I wanted to say here is how the cloud enables actually new productions to save drastically on cost and also on CO2. And when we think about the CO2 impact in the cloud, we think of it in 3 ways. There's the sustainability of the cloud. That's what you see here, is how we in cloud reduce our energy consumption, our CO2 consumption through what we do with our data centers and so on. So typically the CO2 gains are between a factor of 3 and 5 compared to a typical similar online data center. So that's point number 1, is the sustainability of the cloud. The second thing is the sustainability in the cloud. And we've worked with partners, we work with many partners, but with TVU, for example, we worked with them to help them optimize the way they use the cloud so that their consumption of the cloud is also optimized. So they use less cloud than if they were just porting, and that use of cloud is actually has a lower impact. But the third one, and the one that has the biggest impact actually, is how you can save CO2 through the use of the cloud. And that's by allowing to change workflows, by allowing to have more connectivity, distributed teams, and so on. And I think something that Romuald didn't say is some of the more massive CO2 gains in these productions is actually what was avoided by having no helicopters, a single car relying on their own battery. And that sustainability through the cloud, by changing the workflows, by optimizing, by allowing distributed work, centralizing some of the processing in the cloud, is where you get the most out of cloud technology from a point of view of sustainability, is by allowing to change the workflows. So I will hand back on to Romuald to continue this, but this influence of how the cloud can help on sustainability is a key topic that we're working on at AWS.
Very quickly, we understood that we could use this solution for more uses, but very quickly during the Olympic Games. Because it works, of course, but also because operators and editorials are already on board, which is the main topic for the change management. We used the same setup for the Paralympic torch relay just before the Paralympics. And we produce 3 special live days on our main channel, France 2. France 2 is, it's the main channel of France television. Especially the 5th of July, we reach 15 million of viewers with this setup. To understand, it's nearly 25% of the French population. And we were able to easily increase the number of cameras on the editorial coverage to understand that the PGM was, of the relay was live on the digital channel and was also used as an international feed by France 2. And France 2 also needed more camera for his own use. What it was very easy to add in the cloud solution and in the private 5G network. So the solution gives us more opportunity for this coverage. The digital, the cloud channel production was also used for all the Olympic and Paralympic to provide the broadcasting of the competition. And during the torch relay, we understood that we had an opportunity to create a large disaster recovery for all Paralympic, Olympic and Paralympic coverage of France television. And Guillaume will talk about that, give you some details.
So, just a few key figures about the channel, because we use it we talk about for the Flamme Relay, but also during the Olympics and the Paralympics period. So we had basically 4 periods. The first one is the Flamme channel, where we have to produce the signal and distribute it with the TVU channel. We had the Olympic Games, where we use only TVU channel and producers as a backup, and I will speak about it after. In between, we had some media that was recorded, so it was just a thematic channel about Olympic sports, and where we gave some replay catch-up. And then we had the Paralympic game, where we also have only the channel with the producers at the DRP. What is important is during the Olympics, we had more than 11 million people that were watching the feeds. It was a 3rd channel dedicated for urban sports, young sports, and little-known sports, and we get a lot of people watching in whatever. And when we finish the Flamme Relay, we know that we have a good solution for production, and we were looking for disaster recovery, because we have to ensure that the broadcasting of the Olympic and the Paralympics were without any trouble. You can't lose something that you have every century. And the process to set up the DRP was blocked in the beginning of last year due to the price, because if you start to create and put some real playout gallery and real PCR gallery to create your DAP platform, it's like in the millions of euros, especially when you have the Olympics and every resources around Europe is already booked for the event. So we identify some risks because when you start to create your DAP, you need to identify all the risks you want to cover. And we have like traditional risks like headquarter, but we have also the cybersecurity. Just to mention, there were like 1,000 times more attacks during the Olympics than before the Olympics in France, especially around France television and all the actors around the Olympics. And we have also all the production parts where we can lose PCR, signal, fiber cuts, etc. So we want to protect the headquarters because we are right in Paris, very accessible. You have fiber in the under the road, so you can isolate our building. We have to cover our MCR, where we gather and distribute all the feeds. And we have also the galleries, because for the Olympics, every single PCR of France television was in use, and we deploy all our mobile PCR. So we have no spare if anything happens. And of course, we need to be able to have the international feeds, but to add comments, to add the mixed zone where we have journalists, and on top of that, we will also add some minimal graphics to have the name of the winner and so on. So we use one product that make our life really easier. It's TVU Media Hub, which is the MCR in the cloud, where we can get the flex load from OBS, where we have the feeds, the real international feeds of the Olympics. And we can also add the mixed zone, where we have journalists with the mix of TVU, LaView, AV West. And it's really important to have a solution that is able to gather every kind of feeds inside the platform. We set up 2 dedicated Starlink feeds for our main PCR that were both our channel France 2 and France 3 main stage. And we also use a remote commentator from the producer's perspective. So what is pretty cool is that if everything works well, you just start Media Hub. The price is pretty low. And if you have anything that happen, you just start your PCR producer. It's like a matter of 2 to 3 minutes. It's less than the time for people to go to the meeting room and start acting on the panel. And you change the configuration of every communication unit to get the mixed tone, and everything is fine. You send with WhatsApp the TVU remote commentator URL. People start the URL on their iPhone, and with the AirPods, they start to command the feeds that you are missing in producers. And what is also cool, you see in the slide, you have some physical panel that has like very lightweight and only need a minimal network. So we set up in 2 buildings with like €1,000 of hardware, with home internet gateway, and you're done. So you can really create a lot of PCR for DRP on a very low cost, a very high time to activate, low time to activate, and to be able to distribute either with DVB or to our ISP.
Thank you very much to the France TV team. Thank you everyone for that first presentation. We are now going to move on with the BBC. So on stage today for the BBC, I have Geraint, who is the stream editor that was the lead for the UK election project with us. We will also have Fernando. So Fernando, if you can come. So he's the head of solution at TVU for Europe. And we have also Johannes, who was like the lead architect working in partnership with the BBC. to make this project happen. Before I let Geraint take the mic, what I want to say is that we all know that this year on the news side is a crazy year of election. I think there is like 60 plus election around the world. We have the big US election coming. In Europe, the UK election have been the biggest one that we had to manage this year. And the BBC decided to really go bold and bigger and like offer like the most personalized live video offer that they've ever done before on an election night. And Geraint has been leading that and went really bold on like going outside of the box. And we are very thankful that you chose us as a partner for that. And on that word, I will let Geraint come on stage and explain a bit more about this crazy project.
Thank you. So it's been a really long-held ambition for the BBC to broadcast live from every count at the election. And that's because we wanted to show democracy in action and also show that we're actually present at all these locations. So it's a really complex project, and I thought it would be good to start with what we actually achieved. We had a blank canvas, but here's what we achieved on the night.
369 live streams. One giant studio wall.
We have correspondents at more counts right around the country than any other broadcaster, so stick with us.
21 online multi-viewers.
We'll be here with you all through the night at every single count in Scotland. Wherever a vote's being counted, we will be there.
It's a bit of an assault on the senses. Here we have a vision of virtually all the leisure centres across Wales. If there's any doubt we're not at every count, there you have evidence of it.
The most ambitious personalised live video offer BBC News has ever delivered on election night. All captured on a mobile kit, which fits in a postal tube.
So there we have it, 369 live streams in one night from locations all across the UK, and it obviously was a very challenging project, which is what we're going to talk about now.
So yeah, so I'm sure that there's been a lot of challenges like to go on that project, and the first one that I come to think about is that the UK election were originally planned in November, and by what it was in May, I believe that like they decided to change the date to actually the month of July 4th. So how was that, like from the TVU side and from the BBC side? How did we handle that?
You want to start or should
Yeah,
I?
you start with the challenges.
Yeah. Well, I guess we find out during May that at the end, we wouldn't have that much, time to develop, the system. So what we did actually, we sat down with BBC, with Geraint's team, right? And we, defined, what would be the minimum viable function that they would need, to, accomplish this, right? So we defined the whole scope of the project, and then we decided, the priorities for all the functionalities, right? Because this is a huge system, right? And then we have a lot of segments and a lot of elements, and we decided together, priorities for all the functions that we didn't have at that time, okay? So, what we do, it's once we have the priority in place, we break down, the whole scope, and then we start developing each of the, we call them, micro projects. So you don't need to wait for the whole development. You just, we start delivering, new functionalities in, testing environments. So actually the user can start playing with the tool and do their own testings, and tries, right? So that way we move really fast, in terms of development, right? And that is how I guess, Geraint, as soon as we have the new functionality, the new specific thing that BBC needed, started to play with it so he can understand, that the functionality at the end was there. And then we keep on delivering day after day, right?
Yeah, and the biggest challenge for us at the BBC was just the scale of the project. in a number of ways, dealing with this many streams, and also just the logistics of it with the staff that were out actually setting up these cameras, and also the councils and all the permissions that you have involved as well. And we were using staff that were already at the counts, and that was a large part of us saving or not spending so much on this project. And that's what's been prohibitive in the past, is the cost of pulling off something like this, and also the technology that's available. So one of the things that we actually did was created a video, a setup video. It all fits within this tube. And the people using this kit, they ranged from experienced camera operators to people who'd never touched a camera before. So we had to come up with a solution from scratch that was really easy to use and also easy to send around the UK, and for them to set up straight away and just be able to open the app and let it run. And they had other responsibilities on the night as well, so we couldn't talk to them after they set it up. The polls closed at 10 o'clock, and that's when we went live. So then we had this step-by-step video that everybody who received the kits could see beforehand, and if they had any issues on the night as well, we could refer back to this video and tell them how to do. So this shows you, they just open the app, they turn it over. You see, that's the level of detail we went to, saying this way up with a camera. They put it in, and then that's it. It's broadcasting live for 12 hours with the power bank as well connected, allowing it to broadcast through the night. For the final bit of it, we had 12 journalists monitoring all these feeds. So if anything happened on any of these feeds that we weren't happy with, we could replace it with a looping graphic. And that was one of the number of requests that I came with to Fernando when we started this project. We needed to have a way that we could end it quickly if that needed to happen. But from a tech point of view, what were the security steps, Fernando? You can say more about that, yeah.
Well, in terms of security, I would say, we work to have devices, identify in our system, right? So it was at the beginning a list of 400 devices, right? So only those devices that were part of the system were allowed, to start a transmission automatically into our system. And then, as Geraint said, it was this group of journalists controlling, actually what they wanted to show as part of the mosaic, right? So everything was happening in TVU backend system, okay?
Yeah, so here's the workflow. We've got the 400 iPhones that we had set up, and they were set up beforehand. So talking about the kind of simplicity of it, that fits into it as well. All the work was done beforehand, so the iPhones had a location pre-programmed, so that's all that the user had to do is switch it on. This then went through TVU search into Party Line to create the multi-viewers. So we had 21 regional multi-viewers. Also went in the ISO feeds, which went into a transceiver for the linear programming. But those multi-viewers went into Producer, where we added BBC local radio audio, and then it touches the BBC system for the first time, which is BBC Silver, where we added graphics as well, and that then goes on to BBC iPlayer and also to the constituency pages on the BBC News website. And it also got sent to the regional programming. So you saw in that video at the start there, we had a program in Wales and Scotland as well, and it was in that giant virtual studio wall as well on the network program. But and also an important feature that we really needed was we wanted every stream to be recorded in ISO. So the reason why we wanted that was if something were to happen at any of the counts and we wanted to clip that up straight away, we could do that through TVU search, and that was all cloud-based as well.
Of course, this is a huge system, right? And it was a 10 hours event, just one day, okay? But you can imagine, the work that is behind the curtains, right? Because we did a lot of testing as well. And that is something that this type of SaaS ecosystem allows the users, to accomplish. So you can test it, okay? You can keep on testing, keep on improving the workflow, the functionality, and, your production, okay? So I guess that is an important part as well of, the pre-work, right?
And something that's important to say was, obviously, we were caught a little bit off guard by the timing of the election, like Fernando mentioned. So we had quite a small-scale test in May in the local elections, and then it was just a few weeks later that the election was called. So this may have looked a little bit different had the election been in November, say, as we may have been expecting, but what the audience actually got as a final product didn't change at all.
If I may add one thing, like the key to handle 360 sources and even more is really automation and API, right? So we did actually script the entire workflow when it comes to the mosaics, when it comes to the search part, when it comes to enabling the sources, enabling the recording. Nothing of this was done by operators, right? Because no operator could do this in this kind of small amount of time in this large scale. So I think what TVU really is about and all our solutions are about is to kind of be able to API call, be able to automate the entire workflow, and this was really key to this large scale project.
And this is actually a time lapse of all the feeds coming in on the night. It kind of gives you an idea of the scale of the project. So as I said, you know, the polls closed at 10 o'clock. We were live at 10 o'clock, but some of the counts didn't let in the journalists until, or the stringers until a bit later. So you can see that it's growing here, and you've got the looping graphics as well. So you've got them joining, coming in and out. And as Fernando said, this was over a probably more like 12-hour period, really, wasn't it? So it was a long night, but that gives you an idea of the scale of the project. And this was, you know, all the tubes that we were setting up. So it all fit in this, and this can just go through regular postal systems as well. So this is the way, you know, quite a fast, easy system for us to get these kits over to the stringers, who are the people who set up the cameras on the night. We had to hand label. This was the most labor-intensive part of the whole process, because each of the kits got their own codes, which then Fernando programmed to the location, so that when they switched it on, we knew straight away where that camera was coming from, and it went to the right place in party line as well. Then this was the setup on the night. So this is the 12 journalists in the BBC. You can see them using the party line system here. So this was the opportunity for the journalists to replace the feed with a looping graphic if something went wrong. Something which was quite neat built into the system was that if the feed went down, it actually froze on the last frame as well. So that was really handy for us, because it meant that if there were any connectivity issues, which thankfully there weren't too many on the night, but it just meant that it froze for a little bit before it connected again. And it also gave us an opportunity to contact the person out in the field if we needed to.
So I just want to ask something. Is like we mentioned the time frame that was pretty short, but also like what I see from the video is that there's not a lot of people involved. I believe Fernando said 12. Like how did you manage to achieve like 370 plus feeds and 21 multi-viewers with just that team?
Yeah, well, it was a challenge, but the way that we did it was we split the UK into 21 regions, so everybody was responsible for a certain region and they could monitor that. They had a number of screens as well, and they were very clear on what their responsibilities were on the night. So, yeah, it was a very tight team on that side, but then the scale on the other side was pretty immense compared to that, yes. Yeah, well, you know, it was the most successful election night for the BBC on iPlayer, so that there were 21 million requests for all of our outputs and 8 million viewing hours as well. So it was, and as we said at the beginning, you know, the most personalised offering that we've ever given to our audience. And in terms of transparency as well, you know, it's just taken it to another level, you know, and the audience can see their votes being counted. That was something that we really wanted to achieve from the start, and we managed to pull that off. So this was one of the push requests that we had on the night, which had a higher than average engagement, and also we had you know, quite a lot of interest as well afterwards from, you know, Broadcast Tech and other media outlets as well. Oh yes, interested in how we managed to pull this off. And this video is actually quite interesting as well. This was one of the people who set up the cameras for us. She did a TikTok and it got tweeted as well, and that's got over 2 million views. So people are really interested in how we did this, as well as the actual content that we created on the night as well. Oh, so actually I'll talk a bit more here about the results. Yeah, so, you know, we were There were 373 locations in total, and we managed to be live at 369 of those, so a 99 success rate. The places where we, the 4 places where we weren't live, it was either because the battery had run out or there were serious connectivity issues which we weren't able to resolve on the night. But if you would have offered me that figure at the start, I would have bitten your arm off. A completely different offering to the audience and the most personalised and successful project on iPlayer as well. And as I said, 21 million requests on the night, 8 million viewing hours on iPlayer. Yeah, I think there's lots of exciting things to think about using this technology. And, if I were to do this particular project again, I think it's quite interesting. We could see the people counting. Sound-wise, we were recording sound in case we needed to use a recording to replay later. But we were using BBC Audio on the multi-viewers. I think what would be the next level would be to actually capture all the declarations as well. Obviously, there's complications in that because it may be in a different location and you have to mic up and stuff. But, the way this is heading, there's lots of different opportunities here, and opportunities as well for the audience to participate in our coverage because, we sent out kits to these locations, but there's nothing stopping us from having audience using their own kits to kind of contribute to something if we do something in the future. And also, I know there are AI tools built into this system, but we didn't use that for this project. But there's things that we could use, exciting opportunities in the way, as well as what we broadcast, in the way that we actually get the results in the first place. Because if we do manage to mic up the presiding officer making the declaration, what we could do is actually use that as the way that we get the result as fast as possible into the BBC. So there's lots of different opportunities here when it comes to using this technology.
Thank you. Do anybody has a question for Geraint regarding the workflow? Yes?
So you have many ways of doing this. What did you find the most appealing working with TVU, and why in that workflow did you use them?
It was the party line system, because we needed to have this in a multi-viewer kind of format, and because the number of pips we could have in a multi-viewer was much larger than what other providers could offer, and that was such a big part of it for us, because obviously we couldn't handle 369 streams on the night ourselves. So the first moment that it touched the BBC, we were only handling 21 feeds, and the solution that TVU offered for that was definitely the reason why we went for them in the end.
I guess even though the question wasn't directed to me, if I may add from a TVU perspective, I guess the really important thing to mention here is as well that the project was deployed in the cloud, right? And this is really what enabled this in the first place. Because imagine you have a, let's say, 10 hours event with this scale on a hardware kind of environment. This is, from an investment perspective, unbelievably not possible, right? So I guess this is really what we did there. So except for the phones and this single receiver, which was in the studio, we didn't use any hardware for this production at all. And I think this is, especially when it comes to the scale of the project, a really big learning for the industry, that we can do this and we can do it now, even those large-scale elections.
Hi, my name is Sanjay. Actually, it was a nice presentation. Thank you very much. In the distribution side, I have seen you have used two different protocols for distribution of the content. One is RTMP and SRT. Is there any specific reason for that? You select two different protocols for that?
The BBC internal system, so BBC Silver, which we saw works through RTMP, that's why we did that. Mm-hmm. And SRT was to the studio, where we had a TVU transceiver within the studio so that we could pull that off. But that's the only thinking behind that, no other reason.
Sure, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe again one more comment. So the entire TVU ecosystem, and we in this project actually used the entire ecosystem. We used, I would say, out of our 140 microservices, I would say we used almost all of them, and they are all about any in, any out, right? So Jared could have come up with any protocol, we would have supported it, but thanks for the good question.
Okay. Well, Geraint is here for a few moments. He's staying on the booth, so if you want to talk privately with him, feel free. The France TV team also is still around, so if you want to exchange on the Olympic project that they've done, go and talk to them directly. And thank you very much for today, and enjoy the rest of the breakfast, okay? Thank you, Garant.